Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are tackling a topic that is literally a game changer for your aquarium. We're going to demystify the freshwater shrimp diet, because getting this right is the single biggest difference between a dull, sluggish tank and a vibrant, active ecosystem. We are going to take your shrimp colony from merely surviving to absolutely thriving, breeding, and showing off their absolute best colors. So, let's jump right in.
Now I want you to think about the ultimate paradox in the shrimp keeping hobby. If freshwater shrimp spend 8 to 10 hours a day eating, why does feeding them actually kill them? It sounds completely counterintuitive, right? Well, here's the reality. While they are constant, all-day scavengers, overfeeding is the absolute #1 killer for beginners. Today, we're going to unpack exactly why that happens and, more importantly, how you can avoid it.
Let's start by busting a massive myth right out of the gate. A lot of folks think of shrimp as just a cleanup crew. They assume these guys can just scrape by on whatever algae and waste is sitting at the bottom of a dirty tank. But as the experts over at TankZen point out, defaulting to basic sinking pellets or relying on tank waste just isn't enough. Variety is what keeps a colony thriving long-term.
All right, let's get into Section 1, the constant scavengers.
To figure out what to put in our home aquariums, we have to look at what shrimp actually do all day in their natural river and stream habitats. And the secret to their wild diet boils down to one absolute superfood. It's called biofilm. Basically, biofilm is this invisible layer of bacteria and microorganisms that coats the rocks, wood, and glass in a mature tank. Wild shrimp spend most of their time just picking at surfaces for this exact film. And this is a really vital point. Your tank needs to be at least 6 months old to have enough mature biofilm to naturally sustain a small colony. If you drop shrimp into a brand new squeaky clean setup, they're probably going to struggle simply because their main food source hasn't even grown yet.
When you break down their natural diet, you see just how much of a scavenger they truly are. I mean, besides biofilm, they're grazing on various algae like green spot and diatoms. They eat detritus and tiny microorganisms. But one of their absolute most crucial wild food sources is decaying plant matter. In the wild, leaves fall into the streams and just break down slowly over time. So adding something like Indian almond leaves or oak leaves to your tank at home is just incredible. It feeds the beneficial bacteria and gives your shrimp an amazing natural grazing surface that literally lasts for weeks.
Moving right along to Section 2, the 3-pillared captive diet.
So how do we recreate that rich, diverse wild buffet inside a glass box in our living rooms? Well, we need a framework, and this 3-tier approach is your golden rule. First up, high-quality commercial shrimp pellets or powders. Specifically, you want to look for ones with spirulina, kelp, or moringa right near the top of the ingredient list. Second, blanched vegetables for those essential minerals. And third, occasional protein treats like Daphnia or tiny pinches of bloodworms. By rotating these 3 pillars, you are guaranteeing that you're mirroring that natural diet diversity. You're making sure they get the plant matter, the calcium, and the protein they need for solid growth and healthy molting.
Now, a quick pro tip on that second pillar, the vegetables. Blanching them is completely essential. And the magic window here is 60 to 90 seconds in boiling water. That softens the cell walls just enough so your shrimp can easily tear into them. Oh, and definitely remember to cool the veggies completely before dropping them into your tank.
But here is the absolute catch. Once you drop that food in, the clock is ticking. You have a maximum of 24 hours to leave those vegetables or really any uneaten food in the tank. If you leave a chunk of zucchini just rotting on the substrate for days, it's going to decay rapidly and cause a lethal ammonia spike. And ammonia kills shrimp incredibly fast. So the rule is, drop it in, let them feast, and pull out whatever is left the very next day.
Let's dive into Section 3, feeding different shrimp species.
Because look, a one-size-fits-all approach, that is a total recipe for disaster in this hobby. Let's compare the 2 most popular families of dwarf shrimp. You've got Neocaridina, like your classic cherry shrimp or blue velvets. These guys are the hardy workhorses of the hobby. They're super adaptable, they'll eat almost anything you drop in, and you really only need to feed them every 1 to 2 days. On the flip side, Caridina shrimp, like the really stunning crystal reds, are highly sensitive. They need much softer, acidic, cleaner water, and they do best with smaller, daily pinches of food. They just cannot tolerate the water degradation from uneaten foods sitting around. And this specialized approach extends to other popular species too. Amano shrimp, for instance, are absolute algae machines. You only need to feed them every 2 to 3 days, and their main priority should be algae wafers if your tank is relatively clean. And then, completely at the other end of the spectrum, we have the bamboo shrimp, which need an entirely different strategy altogether.
Which brings us to a massive misconception that we need to correct right now.
The idea that bamboo shrimp can just share pellet food with your cherry shrimp. Absolutely false. Bamboo shrimp are filter feeders. They have these amazing fan-like arms that they hold out into the water current to catch microscopic particles. They literally physically cannot pick sinking pellets off the substrate. Honestly, if you see a bamboo shrimp scavenging the gravel, it is starving. They require powdered foods like spirulina powder or bacteria AE dissolved directly into a strong water current.
All right, up next is Section 4, the calcium connection. Let's talk a little bit about the science of shrimp health. Because nutrition isn't just about full bellies, it's about structural integrity. For a shrimp to successfully build a strong new shell, your tank's general hardness needs to sit right in that optimal range of 4 to 6 DGH. Aquaculture research shows this is the scientifically backed sweet spot for calcium levels in your tank water. Why does this matter so much? Because shrimp periodically molt, meaning they shed their entire exoskeleton as they grow. And to survive that incredibly taxing process, they desperately need available calcium in both the water column and their diet. A failed molt, where a shrimp gets literally trapped and dies inside its old shell, is one of the most common and tragic killers, especially in softwater tanks. But the good news is, it's entirely preventable. You can easily boost calcium by doing things like adding crushed coral to your filter, placing pieces of collarbone directly into the tank, or just offering mineral-rich commercial foods and blanched kale. Super simple, but a total lifesaver.
Which brings us to Section 5, deadly feeding mistakes.
Okay, we've covered what to do. Now we absolutely must talk about what not to do. These are the deadly mistakes that could actually be happening in your tank right now. Let's circle back to that paradox from the beginning. Feeding kills shrimp when we overfeed them. If you notice your water gets cloudy shortly after you drop food in, or if your shrimp are suddenly hiding or acting sluggish, or if you see this white fuzzy mold growing on food at the bottom of the tank, you are definitely overfeeding. Just remember this rule of thumb. Only feed what your shrimp can completely finish in 2 to 3 hours.
And here is a really scary reality. Just 0.02 milligrams per liter. That is the extremely low concentration at which copper becomes highly toxic to your shrimp. Why am I bringing this up? Because a lot of common tropical fish foods actually use copper sulfate as a preservative. If you just sprinkle your standard fish flakes into a shrimp tank, you could literally be slowly poisoning them. So always check the ingredient labels on your fish food.
There's another heartbreaking mistake that happens right when you think you're succeeding, when your colony finally breeds. Shrimplets are almost microscopically tiny when they hatch. They physically cannot eat large pellets. For their first critical month, they rely entirely on that microscopic food chain we talked about earlier, the biofilm. If your tank isn't mature enough, those babies will simply starve to death. Adding a powdered biofilm supplement like bacteria AE twice a week is an absolute lifesaver for newborn shrimp.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a real provocative thought. Look at your aquarium right now. Is your tank's ecosystem actually mature enough to keep your shrimp alive? Do you have that 6-month-old biofilm going? Are you providing the right variety of pellets, blanched vegetables, and calcium without overfeeding? It's not just about tossing food in the water, right? It's about cultivating an entire environment.
It's a fascinating balancing act. And once you get it dialed in, watching a healthy, active shrimp colony is just one of the most rewarding experiences in the whole aquarium hobby. If you're ready to really master your ecosystem, I highly encourage you to check out the TankZen blog. They've got the complete feeding guides, incredibly detailed species care sheets, and trusted gear reviews to help you succeed. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and happy shrimp keeping.